And welcome back to a new post today. Let's today complete the whole of January's current affairs that you need to keep track for the upcoming UPSC Civil Services Examination 2025 Prelims. So the very first, today we'll be covering January 28th, 29th and 30th, and we'll be starting with February 1st. So let's look at Uttarakhand adopting the new Uniform Civil Code. Now it is becoming the first country after independent India and the second country to do so after Goa. So the Uniform Civil Code, as mentioned in Article 44 of the Indian Constitution, now has come into force in Uttarakhand, where it is a piece of legislation that seeks to apply unified set of personal laws governing marriage, divorce, adoption, inheritance and maintenance of all the citizens in Uttarakhand, irrespective of their religion, gender, caste and sex. Now the Uttarakhand government is the first to do so in independent India, but Goa continued with its colonial era UCC when it became a part of India in 1961. Then it was a union territory. Now Goa followed the UCC based on the Portuguese Civil Code of 1867. The Goa Damandiyo Administration Act of 1962 permitted to retain the colonial era civil code. And next is about the Tista Dam being damaged after a glacial lake outburst flood in 2023. It is being rebuilt now. The Tista flows in Sikkim and from there it enters into West Bengal. The Tista generates hydroelectric power and it was damaged in 2023. It was triggered by a glacial lake outburst flood. A glacial lake outburst flood basically is a catastrophe which releases water from a glacial lake. The glacial lake outburst flood can be caused by failure of the dam due to melting of glacial ice, moranic debris or bedrock as well. Deposition of moranic debris or bedrock as well. The Nordic countries were in news. The Nordic consists of Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland and Iceland, as well as the Faroe Islands, Greenland and the Åland. The word Nordic is derived from the Norden, meaning north in Danish, Norwegian and Swedish languages. Now this was in news because of Trump speaking of takeover of Denmark and also Greenland. So the next issue is about this. Now Greenland was once a Danish colony and it is now an autonomous province of Denmark. It is located in the North Atlantic Ocean between Europe and North America across the Baffin Bay from Canada. Its strategic importance rose during the Cold War and also US as a large air base there. Secondly, Greenland is very rich in rare earth minerals which are used in mobile phones, electric vehicles and other consumer electronics as well, and also bombs such as munitions and other weapons. Presently, China is the major supplier of these minerals in the world. In 2021, Greenland passed a law banning uranium mining in its territory. Third, the global warming leads to melting of ice and new waterways can open up in the Arctic region, and all the major powers are seeking to boost their presence. The melting of the ice will also lead to a lot of natural gas production as well, and US and Russia and China are already in the race in the Arctic region. The next is about the 100th launch of ISRO with the GSLV F-16. Let me tell you, the first launch was on August 10, 1979. It is the first experimental flight of satellite launch vehicle SLV-3 E-10 carrying Rohini technology payload, and it was only partially successful according to the Space Agency. ISRO has its roots in the Indian National Committee for Space Research that was set up in the Department of Atomic Energy in 1962. ISRO, as we know today, was set up in 1969. The same year, United States sent its man on moon, and the separate Department of Space was only created in 1972. The Space Agency has developed several rockets, they being SLV, PSLV, the LVM-3 and also GSLV rockets, becoming a reliable launch partner even for satellites from other countries as well. It has also carried out scientific missions with regard to the three Chandrayaan missions, which proved very successful and also useful data to the researchers not only from within the country but also the world as well. And WHO now has warned the citizens of intake of low sodium salt and using low sodium salt substitutes to reduce sodium intake. The WHO recommends reducing sodium intake to less than 2 grams per day. What is low sodium salt in substitute? It includes potassium chloride and reduces the amount or percentage of sodium chloride in table salt. It can also reduce the risk of hypertension hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, and many non-communicable diseases as well. The WHO recommends for adults, not pregnant women and children, and the recommendations include individuals with kidney impairments and other conditions that might compromise this potassium excretion by them. Amorphophallus titanum was in news. It's called the corpse flower because of its pungent stink, I would say. This is now listed as an endangered species in the International Union of Conservation for Nature. The allure of the corpse flower comes from its great size that can grow up to 12 feet tall and a powerful stink and fleeting presence of people around it. The plant frequently grows up to 8 feet tall in cultivation. Its putrid smell is because of the potent during the bloom season in the night and also early morning. The odor is often compared to the stench of rotten flesh. The inflorescence or the collection of the flowers acting as one also generates heat and allows the stench to travel much further. This combination of heat and smell efficiently lures the corpse attracted pollinators such as the carrion beetles and the flies from long distances. The corpse flower does not have an annual blooming cycle. The bloom emerges and the energy the energy is stored in and around the underground stem called as corn. The plant blooms only when sufficient energy is accumulated, making the flowering very unpredictable, spanning from a few years to also decades. It requires very special conditions like warm day and night temperatures and very high humidity, making botanical gardens well suited for the strange plant outside its natural range. And the plant is native to the tropical rainforests of Sumatra, Indonesia, and first becoming known to science in 1878. The next is about Trump's executive order regarding the birthright citizenship, which has been declared by unconstitutional. Birthright citizenship is a legal principle that grants automatic citizenship to an individual who is born within the country's territory. The US is in US this right is enshrined in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. In India, it is included in Part 2, which deals with citizenship. The US District Judge John issued a temporary restraining order halting the enforcement of the executive order nationwide. He described it as blatantly unsuccessful. Now, why? The nations around the world determine citizenship on two principles: jus soli, that is the right of the soil, which grants citizenship by birthright, or jus sanguinis, which means right of blood, that is which grants citizenship by familial descent. In India, both of these are accepted. And the last one is about beating retreat, which ends the culmination of Republic Day celebrations. Now, this is an old age a tradition wherein the troops disengage from the battlefield at sunset and return to the camps. Here, President Draupadi, who is the supreme commander of the armed forces, is carried in a horse-driven buggy along with the president and the defense minister and the vice president of India, where she is given a beating retreat, and this marks the end of the celebrations of Republic Day celebrations every year. So this is an annual phenomenon that takes place at the end of the Republic Day celebrations every year in the month of February. So this is all about the most important news that we needed to track for January 2025 for upcoming civil services examination prelims. If you did, please do like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to comment at the end of the video. I shall start my next series with regard to February, the most important topics that you need to keep track. Until then, it's very happy learning.